Psychology says that the inability to apologize is rarely about a lack of manners. It's often a sign of a deeply defended psyche. People who never apologize aren't just stubborn. They are often operating from a place of profound psychological fragility. Their refusal to say "I'm sorry" is a protective mechanism, shielding a part of themselves they believe cannot survive the admission of being wrong. 1. Narcissistic defense mechanisms. People who can't apologize often engage in specific behaviors when confronted with a mistake. They might reframe their actions as your fault, insist their intentions were good despite the negative outcome, or completely deny the event ever happened. Psychology calls this the use of narcissistic defense mechanisms, such as projection and denial. Their brain perceives an apology not as a repair attempt, but as a catastrophic threat to their self-concept. Apologizing triggers an intense, unconscious defense, as their sense of self is too brittle to integrate the idea of being flawed. What looks like arrogance is actually a desperate psychological strategy to prevent their idealized self-image from shattering. 2. Ego and self-worth psychology. For some, apologizing feels like admitting they are fundamentally bad or worthless. Instead of viewing a mistake as a single, isolated action, their ego links the error directly to their core identity. They might say, "I'm not the kind of person who makes mistakes," or they will rigidly double down on their position even when presented with clear evidence they are wrong. This is a core concept in ego psychology, where a fragile ego cannot separate the action from the self. Their brain mechanism is wired to protect their self-worth at all costs. Admitting fault would trigger a cascade of self-criticism so severe that their psychological system short-circuits it. They aren't heartless. They re-protecting a sense of self-worth so precarious that it feels like it could dissolve with a single apology. 3. Shame, vulnerability, connection. People who consistently avoid apologies often have a crippling fear of shame. When they do something wrong, they don't just feel guilty about the act. They feel a deep, pervasive sense of shame about who they are. They might get angry when you point out their error, shut down completely, or change the subject to avoid the conversation. Psychology understands this as shame vulnerability, where admitting fault opens a floodgate of toxic self-loathing. Their nervous system equates apologizing with being exposed as inadequate or unlovable, a feeling they will do anything to avoid. What appears as coldness or dismissiveness is actually there. Psych-S attempt to barricade itself against an overwhelming wave of shame. For pride and perfectionism, an inability to apologize is often rooted in a toxic form of perfectionism. These individuals hold a deep-seated belief that they must be flawless to be worthy of love and respect. They will meticulously find external factors to blame, saying things like, "I wouldn't have done that if you hadn single quotes t double quotes," or they will minimize the impact of their actions. This is a pattern of perfectionism psychology where any error is seen as a complete failure. Their brain is trapped in an all-or-nothing thinking pattern. Either they are perfect or they are a complete disaster. Apologizing would mean accepting the latter, which is too psychologically painful to bear. What looks like stubborn pride is actually a rigid defense against the perceived catastrophe of imperfection. 5. Trauma response psychology. Sometimes the refusal to apologize is a learned survival mechanism from past trauma. For someone who grew up in an environment where admitting a mistake led to severe punishment, verbal abuse, or abandonment, apologizing becomes linked to danger. When confronted, they might disappear, get defensive, or even lash out, punishing you for trying to discuss their mistake. This is a classic trauma response. Their nervous system is hardwired to associate accountability with a threat to their safety. Apologizing triggers a fight, flight, or freeze response in their amygdala, the brain's alarm center, making it feel physically and emotionally unsafe to admit wrongdoing. What appears as coldness is actually a trauma response psychology at play, where their system is trying to protect them from a perceived threat. 6. Avoidant Attachment Style. An apology is an act of connection and intimacy. It requires vulnerability and a desire to repair a relational bond. For individuals with an avoidant attachment style, this level of emotional closeness can be terrifying. When faced with a conflict that requires an apology, they might emotionally withdraw, give you the silent treatment, or act as if nothing happened. In attachment theory, this behavior is a strategy to deactivate their attachment system and create distance. Their brain has learned from early life experiences that relying on others or showing vulnerability leads to disappointment or rejection. They're not intentionally being cruel. They're unconsciously pushing you away because the intimacy required to apologize and reconnect feels overwhelming and unsafe. 7. Control and power dynamics. In some relationships, refusing to apologize is a strategy to maintain control and power. By never admitting fault, a person can create a dynamic where they are always right and the other person is always wrong. They might use gaslighting to make you question your own perception, or they will rewrite history to position themselves as the victim. This is often seen in the context of power dynamics within a relationship. Apologizing would mean relinquishing their position of dominance and creating a more equal footing, which can feel like a loss of control. Their brain may be conditioned to believe that relationships are a zero-sum game of power, where admitting a mistake is a sign of weakness that can be exploited. What looks like a simple refusal to say sorry is actually a maneuver to maintain a fragile sense of power in the relationship. People who can't apologize aren't emotionally dead. Psychology shows they're psychologically blocked by deeply ingrained patterns of shame, trauma, or narcissistic defenses. Understanding this psychology isn't about excusing hurtful behavior, but it is crucial for helping you identify these patterns and protect yourself from their impact on your relationships. This knowledge gives you the clarity to stop seeking an apology that may never come, and to make healthier choices for your own emotional well-being. If you want to understand why people behave this way or love learning about the psychology of toxic patterns, subscribe to our channel. The next video reveals more dark psychology patterns that can silently destroy relationships.